It was huge. It's constantly newspaper, TV program.
Kart is huge in Mexico.
Everybody watches the races.
I'm very proud to be a Mexican, especially to be able to race in front of my country. Mexico City is going to be the biggest race by far this year.
In the 1960s, Mexico City took its place in racing history, hosting several editions of the wild and woolly Mexican Formula One Grand Prix. In the 80s, the Formula One cars returned to the circuit famed for speed and danger, and named for Mexico's greatest racing heroes, Pedro and Ricardo Rodriguez. This summer, the circuit was rebuilt into one of the finest in the world. Today, the Autódromo Hermano comes the final round of the Kart FedEx Championship. After 18 great race weekends around the world, Speed Channel is proud to welcome you to qualifying for the 19th and final round of the Kart FedEx Championship Series for 2002 as the Champ Cars return to Mexico for the Kart Grand Prix of Mexico City. For most of its 40 years, this circuit in the Magdalena Michuca complex in central Mexico City was defiled as being decrepit and too dangerous for modern race cars. But after a $31 million renovation, it is surely one of the premier racing facilities in all the world. This weekend it will be packed with Mexican fans by the hundreds of thousands celebrating the heroes of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. But one of those heroes, who happens to be a native Mexican, will not be in the race car. For more on that, let's get right to the pit lane and Calvin Fish.
Well, for Adrian Fernandez, it has been a very tough and sometimes brutal season. Back in July at Vancouver, Adrian was involved in a multi-car crash where he was T-boned and had to be carried away by the kart safety team with a very painful hip injury. After missing the Mid-Ohio race, Adrian returned to the action at Road America. His participation was a day-to-day decision, and Max Pappas was there on standby. And ultimately, Adrian was fit enough to take the start. Then down under in Australia 3 weeks ago, Adrian was involved in a horrific crash at the start. Tora Takagi's car was flipped through the air and landed on the Takagi machine. This left Adrian with a compression of the T2 and T3 vertebra, and the pressure was then on to see if he can make the big race down here in Mexico City. And Adrian, you're standing by with us now, and the sad news, of course, is the fact that you had to make the decision where you will not be in the car this weekend. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. It's maybe the worst news of my entire career. You know, not driving on my hometown and with the fans and beautiful facility that we have here is definitely a big hit. But you know, it's I mean, it's not the reason that I cannot drive. I can drive. The problem is if I'm involved in another bad crash or in a crash, I mean, the consequences can be very severe to the point of paralysis. So basically, that was the decision for myself not to continue.
You made the decision to give this opportunity to replace you in the car to the young rookie Luis Diaz. I'm sure the hometown fans love that. Talk about the pressure on him this weekend. How is he handling it?
He's handling it good. Obviously, there is a lot of things for him to take. He's just not just the driver. I mean, the car is also the fans and everybody. But he has never done a pit stop before he came here. So there's a lot of things that we're going through it with him. Actually, the easiest thing for him right now is to drive the race car. But he's doing a good job, and we're taking him step by step. But by tomorrow, we expect to have him a little bit closer where we want him.
Okay, and we're sorry to see you out of the race. Good luck this weekend, though. And Bob, we're going to have 3 Mexicans in the race anyway for the home boys to cheer for. We're going to have Luis, obviously Jourdain, and then Mario Dominguez, who won down in Australia.
That's right, Calvin. The Mexican fans will certainly have lots to cheer for. Let me add my own personal welcome as we wrap up our first season with the Kart FedEx Championship Series here on Speed Channel. I'm Bob Varsha. Unfortunately, this weekend, 2 of our season-long colleagues will not be with us. When this race was rescheduled from October to November earlier this year, Scott Pruitt, seeking to continue his race-driving career, had an unavoidable conflict. And we're sad to say that Derek Daly also had to leave Mexico City to attend to a personal family emergency, and our thoughts are with the Daly family. With me, however, as he has been all season long, is Tommy Kendall. TK, this is your first look at this amazing facility. What are your thoughts?
Well, being from the land of milk and honey in California, I'm familiar with hype often not matching up with the reality. When you finally see something that people have talked about, the media's built up, you're often disappointed. And hearing the hype coming into this track and this facility, I was expecting more of the same thing. Monterey prepared me for the fanaticism of these fans for kart racing, but nothing prepared me for what this facility is like. The money that Jerry Forsyth and the CA people have put in here is really breathtaking, and I'm really looking forward to the entire weekend.
I was here to call those Formula One races in the early 90s, and it is unbelievable the changes they have wrought here in Mexico City. Here's a look at our program coverage plans for the weekend. Derek Daly was able to tape Kart Friday night at the beautiful Mexico City Hippodrome. You'll see that tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on Speed. Tomorrow we'll have second and final round qualifying at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and then Sunday is race day in Mexico City, the Kart Grand Prix of Mexico City with our pre-race festivities. And if you were with us at the season opener in Monterrey, Mexico, you'll want to be sure to catch the pre-race ceremonies, all beginning at 3:30 p.m. Eastern here on Speed Channel. We'll be right back. Speed Channel's coverage of the Kart FedEx Championship Series is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, advanced technology that gives you a grip on the future. By Toyota, get the feeling. And by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. Welcome back to Mexico City. Overcast skies, cool temperatures as we get set for the opening of this session. It'll be 15 minutes of open practice, 10-minute break during which the cars can be worked on, and then qualifying in earnest on this 2.786-mile, 16-turn course. TK?
Most tracks would be lucky if they have one distinguishing feature. This track is full of them. That front straightaway over 1 kilometer long, 200 and some miles an hour before braking for turn 1. Turn 1, 2, 3 complex, another short shoot into 4, 5. But what everyone's talking about is the S's from turn 6 to turn 13. These S's, they're not uniform, but the guys spend a lot of time, a lot of G-loading. You get into a rhythm, but they're, again, as I said, they're not uniform. There's some banking, there's curbs at every apex, which the guys have to stay off of. Then you come into 14, 15, 16, which is the unique part that goes through the baseball stadium, and then into the second half of the Peritalda, which is turn 17.
You know, you're right, there are 17. Here's a look at the morning highlights. The most unique aspect of this circuit, this blast off the asphalt onto the concrete through a state-of-the-art baseball stadium designed expressly for this purpose, and then back on track.
Batter up.
That concrete to asphalt transition proved a little problematic.
You saw Jimmy there getting real out close to the wall to give himself the maximum angle, got into the dirty part of the racetrack. Harmless spin for Dario Franchitti, and that concrete not only is low grip, it's like some concrete is pretty smooth because it's laid down in patches. This one happens to be pretty rough on the transitions. Kenny Brack into the tires in, I believe, turn 10 of the S's. Now coming into the stadium section, you see bumpy braking, which you also have at the end of the long front straightaway. So a lot of challenges for the drivers and the engineers after that first session.
Of course, we're at high altitude. Electrical fire for Cristiano D'Amata. High altitude means thin air, no drag, but no downforce and big cooling problems. Even D'Amata, the newly crowned series champion, out there in his backup car, had a big dose or two of lockup, torturing those Bridgestone tires. Let's get to Calvin Fish.
Well, the boys are getting ready here for this initial practice run before qualifying this afternoon. Just a week ago, Bob, they made the official announcement with the Toyota Formula One team that it will be Cristiano D'Amata joining Olivier Panis on the F1 team. And Chris, tell us about the excitement and your expectations with this 2-year deal over there.
Well, of course, it's a big opportunity for me. After winning the championship this year in kart, I felt like the mission accomplished. So try a new challenge with Toyota, which is, of course, it's an old partner of mine, and it's still too soon to say about expectations and everything because I only drove the car once. So wait until the winter testing so I have a better idea how everything is going to go.
Here in Mexico City, a sensational racetrack. You didn't get that many laps this morning, problems with the primary car, then you got back out in the backup. What are your initial impressions here?
Well, the track really is fantastic, and it's probably the best track we go to by quite a ways in front of the second place. And it's fast, it's got some bumpy sections, it's got some smooth sections, it's got quite a bit of grip. So I'm just so happy to come to a place like this one, see all the organization, all the effort they put behind such a, great track, great event, a lot of people. What else can you ask for?
All right, Chris, it's been a great season, mate. All of us at Speed wish you the best next year. We're going to miss you, but go over there and kick some butt for us.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
A little more work to be done for 2002 Kart FedEx champion Cristiano Damata. As for his seat at Newman Haas Racing, shortly after Damata announced for Toyota's Formula One effort, this man, Bruno Junqueira, was announced as the new driver at Newman Haas Racing. Bruno Junqueira was also the fastest man in the morning practice. Here's a look at the time. Junqueira, the only driver in the 1 minute 27 second zone, although we expect those times to come down a bit, TK.
Almost in the 126s. Bruno really laid a number down there, over a second quicker than Damata. Cristiano, because of his problems with his primary, did not put stickers on at the end of the session. He felt pretty confident that he would be right there with Bruno, but Bruno really set the pace.
Notice the 16th place driver as we welcome German 20-year-old Andre Lauterer. He and Dale Coyne, one of the founders of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Coyne's team back in action with Lauterer at the wheel and doing fairly well thus far as he jumps in at the deep end of elite open-wheel racing. We'll be back. Welcome back to Mexico City. The boys from Brazil have produced something a little special for this weekend, TK.
Well, if you know how drivers are protective of the territory on their helmets and how much they really love their own helmet designs, you'll realize how significant this is. The three Brazilians who will not be here next year, Christian Fittipaldi, who we see here, Tony Kanaan, and Cristiano Damata, are all wearing a helmet which combines all three paint jobs. They each have their own design on the front, and then the back two quadrants show that's Tony Kanaan's with the orange and blue on the back of Christian's, and that was Cristiano on the other side. Pretty neat gesture.
The circuit is named for the Rodriguez brothers. That's Pedro with his arm in the air, Ricardo in the middle with arms folded. Sadly, both were lost in racing crashes. Over the years, we've seen spectacular passes, none more so than Nigel Mansell around the outside of Gerhard Berger for second place in the 1990 Grand Prix. How about crashes? This is Philippe Ayot of France. A spectacular wreck from which the Frenchman walked away from the wrecked LaRousse chassis. The late Ayrton Senna, three-time world champion, only went on his head once that I recall, and it was here in the Peraltada corner when his McLaren hit the tire wall and went upside down in the gravel trap. Fortunately, he too was unhurt. And the Champ Cars have a previous history here in Mexico City, 1980 and 81, shortly after the founding of championship auto racing teams. Both poles won by Bobby Unser, both races conquered by Rick Mears. Welcome back to Mexico City. We have cars on track for our first open practice session, now about 6 minutes and 40 seconds old. 8 minutes or so remaining, after which we'll have a 10-minute cool down. And then we'll go on the clock for 35 minutes of timed qualifying. Each driver getting a maximum of 15 laps and 30 minutes of guaranteed green flag time. If you cause the red flag, and we had 4 of them in this morning's opening practice, you will lose your fast lap. This is Patrick Carpentier, locked in a titanic battle for second place in the final championship standings behind champion Cristiano Damata. The other two drivers he's battling with, Bruno Junqueira just ahead, and Dario Franchitti just a couple of points behind. There's Tony Kanaan wearing his version of the boys from Brazil helmet colors. Earlier in the session, down in turn 1. Pretty difficult braking area there, TK.
Well, this is the highest speed that Champ Cars see on a road course all year long, over 200 miles an hour. And it's hard to get your bearings. There's brake markers, as there always are, but it's really flat and featureless. Lots of bumps, and sometimes the bump can set up just start the brakes locked. I think right there he might have been checking to see if he had flat spots, and once you have a flat spot, they tend to want to lock in that same spot again. You see him doing the same thing again. I think he's just trying to prove that he does have a problem.
He heads for the pit in. There is Tony Kanaan, headed for the Indy Racing League next year with Michael Andretti's new team. Cristiano Damata, of course, going to Formula One. Dario Franchitti will also be a part of Andretti's effort, while Christian Fittipaldi will become a stock car driver at Petty Enterprises. There's Damata, second quickest this morning at 128.2, but he did have an engine fire as the result of an electrical problem. He is in his backup car, the number 1X. Did I see the X on the side panel? Yes, it's on the nose. Which means that this will be his qualified chassis for the weekend.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to watch. If he puts the car on pole today, I would imagine that they'll opt to race this car. because if they were to withdraw it for tomorrow, I think they would, not that the championship point matters, but they would have to re-qualify if they want to go back to their primary. Some teams, like we saw with Dario down in Australia, they had a real preference for the primary over the backup. Newman Haas, I'm not sure if both their cars look to be updated to the same spec. He's P1 right now. We'll see how the session unfolds.
Thin air here in Mexico City for the impact on the race cars. Here's Calvin.
Well, certainly, as you mentioned, Bob, we're about 2,000 feet higher than we were in the mile-high city of Denver. It really has an effect on the downforce on the cars. Through those S's, we expect the cars to be a little bit faster through there, and D'Amato's still logging them up out there, trying to get used to the braking zones on this racetrack. That's really down to the amount of downforce that's created going down through the S's. Speaking to some of the drivers, as they come up at turn 13, the last part of the S's, they're in 5th gear, flat out through there, and they really need a little bit more downforce, so they're trying to search with ways with the setup on the car, the aerodynamic configuration with the wings to try and get a little bit more grip out of these cars. But D'Amato is pretty happy with this backup car. I spoke to his crew. They said, we actually prefer this car. It was Toyota who wanted to still run the other one initially, so there may be a slight difference in horsepower in the backup car. That may be addressed this evening, but they said that's really our favorite car, so we have no worries about qualifying this afternoon.
All right, thanks, Calvin. Watching Scott Dixon right now. Our pictures coming to us today and throughout the weekend from host broadcaster TV Azteca. And if you had any doubt about the importance of this event here in Mexico, you should see the TV Azteca compound. It's a bit of a cliche to call it the Super Bowl in Mexico, but this is an absolutely huge event, probably the biggest event certainly in Mexico City since the 1968 Summer Olympic Games. Scott Dixon currently 4th quickest of the weekend, 128.2 behind Cristiano D'Amata, Jimmy Vasser, and Bruno Junqueira. We'll be right back.
Mount Everest.
Welcome back to Mexico City, still in our 15-minute free practice before qualifying, first round qualifying for round 19 of the Kart FedEx Championship, the Kart Grand Prix of Mexico City. There is Christian Fittipaldi, who is currently 2nd quickest in this session at 127.8. 4 drivers now in the 1 minute 27 second zone, although nobody has improved on the quick time this morning by Bruno Junqueira at 127.1. Look at the width of that racetrack, 70 feet wide all the way around, except for the short concrete section in the baseball stadium, which is a mere 55 feet wide, which is still wide by racetrack standards.
You can see how much that transition from the asphalt to the concrete is upsetting the car. You saw Christian's car bound across it before we went to break. Scott Dixon's car, it really starts the front bouncing and then the back, and it gets into this kind of fore-aft dynamic where the car is just bouncing front to back. They call that, I think, pitch. It's like a pitch frequency that they'll actually study on the telemetry, do some work with their information from the shock dynos to try to dampen that out as much as possible.
Tickets for this event range from about $35 US to about $280, and it is near a sellout. 117,000 grandstand seats available. But this facility is used to large crowds. Earlier this year, His Holiness Pope John Paul came to celebrate Mass, and an estimated 6 million Mexican citizens came to participate. Down in the pit lane, let's go to Calvin Fish.
One man who's made a big jump in speed since this morning is Jimmy Vasser. He won down in Fontana, obviously on a bit of a roll right now. Just dropped to 4th fastest, but he's way down in 15th spot this morning. Speaking to Mark Johnson, he said, we came here expecting a super smooth racetrack. The track certainly has a few more bumps that we're having to deal with, so they made the big shock package changed over lunch. Jimmy's a lot happier with the car now. They're just trying to fine-tune it here, try and get one more run in before we have that intermediary session, before we go to full-time qualifying this afternoon.
Thanks, Calvin. On board, looking out the visor of Paul Tracy. 6th quickest this morning, currently 13th in this session. So that time at top revs on that 3/4 mile long front straightaway. Fittipaldi heads in. You notice that bridge that caused a breakup in our onboard signal. There are 5 bridges and 4 tunnels around this mammoth racetrack. Christian talks it over with his team. On board now with one of the real stars of the weekend as far as the Mexican crowd is concerned, Michel Jourdain Jr. His father, Michel Sr., and uncle, Bernard Jourdain, both drove champ cars when CART visited here back in 1980 and 81.
And that unique section that goes through the baseball stadium owes its roots to Michel Jourdain Sr. He proposed that way back in, I think, 1992. And when that stadium was built, he told the people who were building, he says, make sure you leave a path through there. Eventually, we're going to have a champ car race here, and I want it to run through the baseball stadium.
Not only did he tell him to leave the path through there, he said build the concrete foundations of what is now the racetrack, which will be covered over by artificial turf for the minor league baseball teams that use that facility. Takagi getting some big old lockup there at the end of the front straightaway, and as often happens, straight on into the grass. Checkered flag has now waved, and we will be silent for about 10 minutes before we go out for first qualifying here for the final event of the CART FedEx Championship for 2002. Stand by for qualifying from Mexico City. Welcome back to Mexico City at Miami Homestead Speedway this weekend. The NASCAR Winston Cup Series will crown its 2002 champion, and you can bet that'll be the subject of conversation on trackside. From Homestead tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Speed Channel. And later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, NASCAR Winston Cup qualifying from Homestead. So find out who'll be on the pole for the all-important final round of the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship for 2002. Moments ago, Kenny Breck suffered, so we say, smoke out the back of his Lola chassis. What would your guess be, TK?
Well, I'm waiting. I always love the press releases to see if maybe this is an electrical failure, and they'll tell us you have the telltale electrical smoke and the telltale electrical fluid all over the course. But if I had to guess, I'd say that one threw a leg out of bed.
Now, is that a big problem? Well, let's go on board with Luis Diaz, who was following Kenny Breck. There's the cloud. There's the oil. Therein lies the problem. Here's a look at the speeds in the 15-minute practice just completed as CART Simple Green safety team goes to work on Breck's car. Dario Franchitti, quickest, 115 miles an hour. That's 1 minute, 27.145 seconds on the clock. Cristiano Damata second, followed by Christian Fittipaldi. Tora Takagi qualifying well once again. Jimmy Vasser in there at fifth, coming off a victory on the Super Speedway in California 2 weeks ago. The fastest 500-mile victory in motor racing history. Kenny Breck winds up sixth in the session. Andre Lauderer continues his good work in his debut in the CART FedEx Championship, sliding in 11th thus far. If he can qualify there, he'll be doing well indeed. Luis Diaz in for Adrian Fernandez. Times in at 16th. Let's get down to the pit lane now and Calvin Fish.
Quick chat here with Christian Fittipaldi. Christian, final racing car. I'm sure it's a bittersweet memory for you to be leaving this series, but you're moving on to new challenges. Talk about last weekend. You qualified great, 17th, and then they roughed you up a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't finish the race, but that's behind us. Let's think about this weekend. I want to definitely do my last race here the best way as possible, and I hope to win. If I don't win, then I wish one of the Mexican drivers can win, because this country is going to go bananas, and probably no one's going to work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's going to be a national holiday.
Talk about the racetrack quickly. How is it out there? Initial thoughts this morning?
It's by far the best track that we have ever been on since when I started karts. It's a little bit too bumpy, but apart from that, it's definitely a real racetrack where you're flowing, you're going from right to left, and it's a real challenge for us to drive over here.
All right, Christian, good luck this weekend, mate. There you see that wonderful helmet design. It's got Tony Kanaan on the left side at the back and Damata over on the right and his own on the front. That's pretty cool. The three boys who live down together in Miami, moving on to new challenges for next season, Bob.
Thanks, Calvin. And there, as he likes to do, car owner Carl Haas goes hands-on with his man's race car.
And that is really something else to watch. And you can see him talking, giving it his blessing.
Talking to the race car. Not the only racer to have done that. I suspect he's going over to Cristiano Damata's mount to perform the same ritual. And Carl Haas does this before every session, every day, every race weekend.
Same number of taps. I mean, in all honesty, I think it's an OCD deal, because during the races he writes the same series of digits up on the stand, taps his pen a number of times, and I think he's been doing it more on Cristiano's car perhaps this year than Christian's. Whatever he's been doing has been working better on the 6 car.
Remember when Emerson Fittipaldi used to like to sit in his race car for hours and talk to the car before a big event. There is PT, who communicates with the race car in his own inimitable way. He'll be doing that shortly in qualifying. Back on August 1st of this year, Mexico City and the park in which our racetrack today resides experienced something truly rare and wonderful. A visit by His Holiness the Pope. As I mentioned earlier, some 6 million of the faithful came out to watch the ceremonies, including Mass, celebrated by the Pope. Absolutely extraordinary display in a country that is famous for them. A different kind of religious experience. Moments ago, car owner Carl Haas bestowed his blessing on the machines of his drivers, champion Cristiano D'Amata, and the fastest man in the practice session just completed, Christian Fittipaldi. If you're a religious kart fan, you'll want to check out our Thanksgiving Kart Marathon. All of the kart races that appeared on Speed Channel and Fox Network this year will be coming your way Thanksgiving Day, from the season opener in Monterrey, Mexico, through the inaugural Denver Grand Prix. Then a day later, beginning at 9 a.m. Eastern, from the British Round in Corby, England, the Rockingham Super Speedway, through the season finale here in Mexico City. Coming your way in our Thanksgiving Kart Marathon on Speed. TK?
Now, I was walking through the grandstands earlier, and some of the fans were upset. They knew that this place would sell out, but they weren't sure about the Pope. So apparently they made all the fans who wanted to get into the kart race buy a ticket to the Pope as well. So they felt a little bit strong on there. So, and we should probably give a nod also to Bernie Ecclestone for letting us use that Pope footage. My understanding is he has the marketing rights for the Pope for the next 50 years.
See the little logo down in the corner, the copyright? Those 2-for-1s are causing lots of problems this year. We're coming out, getting set for qualifying. Calvin Fish.
Well, Dario Franchitti is another driver who made a big move in the speed charts here this afternoon. He was down in ninth this morning, fastest in that little session we just had. I just spoke to his team. Biggest change they made was to get a little bit more roll stiffness into the car. They expected the S's, the initial part of the S's, like from turn 6, I believe, on through 8 and 9, to be about the speed of Portland, but it's a lot faster than that, and the car really wasn't crisp enough on the front end, so they made a roll stiffness change to the car. Car's a lot more responsive now, and Dario's very happy with the car as he heads out for qualifying.
Well, you mentioned as we took a look at that track map, Tommy, that those corners in the back really don't flow.
They flow, but they're not uniform. I mean, it's hard to get a rhythm through there. And as you watched, I mean, when Calvin was talking earlier about D'Amata, the whole time he was talking, D'Amata was in the S's the entire time. They get progressively faster for the most part, and by the end of the 13, they're flat in 5th gear. But that really, if you don't have a car that you're happy with there, you spend probably 15, 18 seconds in those S's. That's a long time to spend with a car that you're not happy with.
This is the farthest reaches of the racetrack. See the bumpiness there. Please don't take what we're saying as criticisms. It's great for the drivers to have a track that is that challenging, that the corners demand so much in the way of focus and precision.
And the setup, there's not one point that you say, you know what, if you make your car quick here, I can be quicker. There's so many different compromises. It really is the ultimate challenge for the drivers and the engineers. Add to that the thin air, the cooling problems, and the downforce differences that creates, and it really is the ultimate test.
Looking up the end of the front straightaway, that was Shinji Nakano and Andre Lauderer. A brief look at the Dale Coyne Racing entry. Once back to Dario Franchitti. 11 cars on track. Tony Kanaan, Michael Andretti, Franchitti, Alex Tagliani, Luis Diaz, Mario Dominguez, Tora Takagi, Lauderer, Shinji Nakano, Michel Jourdain Jr., and Scott Dixon. Now, the skies have been cloudy all day. Calvin Fish, what can you tell us about the forecast?
Well, I was standing in Paul Tracy's pit, and the crew looked to the skies at the same time I did. A few sprinkles coming out here, Bob, and suddenly they just sent him. They don't want to get caught with their pants down here. They're trying to wait, get a little bit more grip in the track, a little bit more rubber down. They can't afford to gamble too much. They've sent Paul out.
Never want to get caught with your pants down.
Calvin's almost daring me to tell that story about how he found himself. Oh, never mind. How he got the nicknames. Okay, I'm going to tell the story. All right. Calvin's nickname is Sushi. We're going to ask him how to explain that he woke up in the elevator in Phoenix years ago doing a ride and drive program with no clothes on. Calvin, or do you want to go to break?
Well, I actually had a touch of deja vu this week, Tommy. I mean, that was about 8 years ago, and I went back to the same hotel on Tuesday and Wednesday. I was working over at Firebird, and the true story is, TK, I was sleepwalking naked at 2:30 in the morning. Now, when I tell that to anyone like you guys, no one believes that story, but true story, 2:30 in the morning, corner of the elevator, two guys and a girl walk on and just start busting up, and I turn around, hit 3, and then said, what the heck do I do now? Didn't even have a sock on, so eventually I got disgusted, went down to the front desk, got a new key, and walked back upstairs, but I get reminded of that constantly, and thanks for bringing it up again, TK. I thought that one had died.
No problem, Sushi. That's your story, and you're sticking to it.
Fish in the raw.
Oh, and it's only the beginning, folks. You're going to want to be with us all weekend long here in Mexico City. Tony Kanaan leading the way at 126.7.
Free available.
Welcome back to Mexico City. Here's a program note. Be sure to check out Speed News on this big weekend in motorsports. Winston Cup Championship, Kart FedEx Series Championship, all being decided. Speed News Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Dave Desmain and Rick Benjamin will be your hosts. Then on Sunday, it's 30 minutes of NASCAR edition at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by 30 minutes of the rest of the news of the world of motorsports at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's Speed News all weekend on Speed. Welcome back to Mexico City. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, and Calvin Fish with you, going on board with Dario Franchitti into the baseball stadium.
Spin in front of him. I think that was Michael. Got it high center. The engine's still running, but the tub is caught up on the edge of the track there. And that is going to cause a wreck.
Spun off.
Hear Michael breathing heavy. We're going to hear a lot of that this weekend at the 7,800-foot altitude. That brings out the red flag, and as a consequence, Michael will lose his best lap of the session. Father Mario looking on. Let's see if we can pick up what happened to Michael.
You can see the car's just dancing on that concrete, loses the back under braking. It's like the back's never connected all the way through to the car. It just bounces more front to back, as I was saying. It's kind of this pitch oscillation that gets going.
That's in turn 16, just exiting the stadium. Michael was in a provisional 5th at 1 minute 27.534. He will lose that time. That is his best lap thus far. He will lose that one or a better, which he will almost certainly get. In real time, there's Dario, Michael ahead of him. Flat spot on that left rear. Michael is in. Calvin Fish.
Well, Michael Andretti brings his car in and he's shaking his head. He didn't really feel it was necessary for a red flag there. He knows that's going to be very costly. Father Mario stands by. Mario, back to Mexico City. I understand you raced here many years ago and the track was a little bit different. Or certainly the facility made some big changes here.
Oh, it's really very impressive. They did some serious work here, and it's really, I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised. Awesome place.
When you come to a track like this, I mean, I know the fire still burns deep inside you. Do you ever think, man, I'd just love to be out there right now?
Especially a place like this where you can really get legs. This is very fast, very demanding. Michael says it's quite physical, so you know that there's a lot of meat on this bone. So
I was thinking that, looking at those S's, the fast left to right and the constant G loading, is that more of an issue for a driver than being loaded up one way when you suddenly get flagged back and forth the other direction?
Well, again, you know, like I said, it's physical because the cars are really sticking through there, and there's a lot of steering effort because it's quick enough that you have a lot of downforce, and you must really make the car change attitude quickly, and it's you got to be very forceful. So you got to be in good shape in the race.
All right, Mario, nice to talk to you. Boys are heading back out with these sprinkles still out there. I think we're going to see a lot of track activity as guys try to get the fast one in case we see more rain, Bob.
All right, thanks very much, Calvin. So we'll take a quick break and be back as the cars come back up to speed with 26 minutes remaining. 30 minutes of guaranteed green flag time, but the rain may be coming. Speed Channel's coverage of the Kart FedEx Championship Series is brought to you by Prudential Financial, growing and protecting your wealth. By Cadillac, bold vehicles defying convention. And by Target, expect more, pay less. Back in Mexico City, back under green with just under 25 minutes to go. There is Cristiano Damata, who was in his backup car after a problem in the engine bay in the morning practice. Currently shown, I'll find him on our timing scoring screen, way back in 18th place. That's why I didn't find him. I started at the top. Completing his second of his 15 allotted timed laps in this qualifying session. Now at the end of that 3/4 mile front straightaway, on the brakes for turn 1.
Mario really summed it up well. And this is the kind of place he said that gets you excited because it really is the ultimate challenge. It's the right kind of environment for a champ car. They can really stretch their legs, and it has all the elements. It's physical. It's kind of the ultimate challenge. And Mario, he never shied away from it. He said, hey, bring it on. Let the best show. And that's what you're seeing. Damata said the same thing. Every guy has said it's very difficult, which is why I like it. Everybody, all these guys say, hey, give me a deal where I can make a difference. And they all believe in themselves. At the end of the day, the scorecard will say who did the best job on the day, but they don't want it to be decided by some factor outside of the car.
You just saw Cristiano Damata's 7 poles on the season. As you might guess, he is on balance the best qualifier of the season in terms of average. 3.1 his average qualifying position through 18 races thus far this year. Second best, Bruno Junqueira, who's also second in the championship. Not coincidentally, I suppose. 4.5 his average start. Then Kenny Brack, which you might not suspect, 6.4. Dario Franchitti, 7.2. And Tony Kanaan, 7.3.
You see that everybody is out there. There's no yellows next to the names, and Junqueira has just pipped Franchitti for the top of the time charts. Let's see where Damata's time puts him.
Fourth at 127.174, but still that puts him a little under 7/10 behind that number posted by Junqueira at 126.456.
This session, the early part of the session took on immediate urgency when the reports started coming in that there was a little bit of rain falling on one end of the circuit. Ordinarily, the guys have been wanting to wait till the end as the track gets quicker and quicker, but as soon as the reports of the rain came in, they all hit the track in earnest.
Damata working hard. This is that S section on the backside. You see a bit of track there. This 2.78 mile circuit can be subdivided into several shorter circuits for things like karting, driving schools, and the like.
Saw him back out of it there right before we switched to pick up Junqueira.
And Paul Tracy. Tracy currently languishing in 14th. Only 133.1 on that last lap for Junqueira.
And that last lap moved Paul up to 8th, now bumped to 7th behind Carpentier.
Kenny Brack torturing that right front Bridgestone. Using a piece of the old racetrack. The original layout of this track was this long, sweeping, flat-out right-hander. Absolutely heroic circuit. Brack getting a nice charge out of the crowd for spinning the car back. There is Junqueira, still on top with that 126.4. Calvin Fish.
Well, Bruno's certainly fast here again, Bob, and quick this morning. I just booked at Bill Pappas, his engineer, and talked about relating this track to Denver at the high altitude. This team really found the sweet spot with the tire pressures in Denver. We had Scott Dixon was fast, Bruno was fast. They finished 1-2 there. They came to this track, used the same tire pressures sort of setup that seems to be working well. So it's something that the other teams were kind of keen on. They realized that Target found something, and maybe it's working for them here again in Mexico City.
You can really see that in the S's. When Bruno was going through the S's, when he's able to switch directions, the car doesn't skip at all. It really looks like it's grabbing a hold of the racetrack. And I'm surprised that they gave you that much information, that they tapped it down to tire pressure. That's something usually they would play really close to the vest.
Bit of debris flying through the air behind Bruno Junqueira's car there. A big schedule of support races is on tap this weekend, including several that draw big crowds here in Mexico. A spec series for Ford Mustangs, another for Dodge trucks, not unlike the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series machines, but using these 6 engines, if I'm not mistaken. Paul Tracy coming back on. I believe that's down at the exit to 1. The arrow next to Tora Takagi's name in our top 10 graphic means Takagi is in the pits. And hanging in there in 4th spot at 127.1. See if we can figure out what happened to Paul Tracy. Oh, it's not at turn 1.
I think it is. It's the exit of 1. That was the very tail end of it.
Ah. Michael Andretti moving up into 4th at 127.047, bumping Tora Takagi to 5th. And now Michael Andretti, he weighs in at 6th despite losing his quick lap. We'll be back. Welcome back to Mexico City. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, and Calvin Fish with you for first round qualifying for the Grand Prix of Mexico City, final round of the Kart FedEx Championship for 2002. We have about 18.5 minutes to go in this session. We're getting more reports of moisture on the back side of the racetrack. And now down in turn 1, according to Kart Race Control, as you watch Christian Fittipaldi bounding over that junction between the asphalt and the concrete in the baseball stadium.
And this is interesting because you see those drops on your visor, but until it gets pretty heavy, the track will not, the track is warm and the tires are hot. It'll burn right through it, won't affect it at all. As a matter of fact, Junqueira just ran a backup lap that is quicker than anybody else. It's not as quick as his pole lap. So, but you see that on your visor, and it starts to work on your head, because the minute it starts to affect it, it's too late and you're off on a wild ride. So you're hoping also that one end isn't drastically wetter than the other.
Unfortunately, the lowering clouds mean we've lost our helicopter, off which we bounce our onboard camera signals, so we won't have those to bring you. We apologize for that. 3 drivers in the 1 minute 26 second zone. Junqueira on provisional pole, Christian Fittipaldi and Dario Franchitti. Junqueira heads for the Target Ganassi Racing pits. Really doesn't look that bad out of our announced position window.
All the way to Ricky, all the way to Ricky. Got about 16 minutes.
No umbrellas to be seen in the grandstands. Just under 17 minutes remaining now. Paul Tracy laps at 127.8. He remains 14th. Keep in mind, today's provisional qualifying also offers a point bonus in the championship battle. Bruno Junqueira, Patrick Carpentier, and Dario Franchitti are in the running for that second place and a $500,000 bonus. Junqueira leading Carpentier by 3 points, with Franchitti 10 points behind the second place man in the championship coming in. This is Jimmy Vasser in the shell car for Team Rahal. Bobby Rahal, of course, raced here in 1980 and 81 when Kart last visited Mexico City.
2 corners behind you, Jimmy. He's on a flyer.
There's Andre Lauderer, the young German, making his debut this weekend with Dale Coyne Racing.
Actually, Bobby only raced here in Atlantic cars. I think his rookie season was 82 when he ran
right?
Jimmy Truman.
Yeah, that figured. Lauderer currently 17th at 128.058. Once again, our pictures are coming to us from host broadcaster TV Azteca. Let's get to Calvin Fish in the pit lane.
Tony Kanaan is currently 8th position on the grid right now, Bob, and he just came in there making another change, and he actually complained a little bit to Ian Watt, his engineer. He said, "You're making too many changes. I need some laps here." They made a spring and a shock change. They're changing the ride heights as well to probably compensate for the different spring rate. But TK, you may relate to this. When you come to a racetrack as difficult as this, as demanding as this, a few more laps, your drivers will actually find some time rather than a setup change.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. Sometimes, I mean, the engineers, that's what they're paid to do, is to try to tweak on it. And it's important when you, sometimes it's coming to a new track, sometimes it's coming to a track you know, but the surface isn't there yet. You have to really lead the team in that way to say, you know what, I'm going to learn more by just sitting here for a second and getting my thoughts together, or don't touch it. I think we're in good shape based on what we learned all season. I think the track's going to come to us. Some teams can't help themselves, and they end up chasing their tail around. The experienced guys end up being able to ID that, and then they just sit there and wait for the track or the experience to come to them.
Watching Michel Jourdain Jr. in the Gigante car. Gigante also a sponsor of this weekend's race.
Great spot for you.
Jourdain currently 15th. Something I'm sure he's not happy with. Jourdain's streak of 17 consecutive points-paying finishes this season was broken 2 weeks ago in Fontana, California, with a mechanical problem. Once again, the yellow arrows mean those drivers are in the pits. Junqueira holding provisional pole at 1 minute 26.392 seconds.
You've seen a lot of lockup. You've seen it in turn 1, we've seen it going into 4, and we've seen it into the 14 complex. And that's brought on by a couple of things. The high grip actually in some ways sometimes can make that worse, because you know there's grip. You charge, it shortens the braking zones up, and then if you have a little bit of a bump there, you're right at threshold braking, and a bump can just pop the car in the air for a second and get those brakes locked. So what you end up doing, you see the bumpy section here, you can see it with the dark rubber being laid down, and as a driver you almost get a rhythm with the brake pedal and the bumps, and you actually find yourself squeezing between the bumps.
Around goes Jourdain.
Very close to what we saw Michael earlier.
Local yellow.
Key difference being that he didn't get the tub stuck on the edge.
Let's go, stay out.
Beginning to hear a little intensity in the voices on the radio.
Spot right there, just keep going.
Coming into 16. A little bit different. As soon as he turns in, he loses the back. That's closer to what Jimmy, his teammate, did this morning. You can see the dust flying off the outside rear wheel when he got out within about 6-8 inch wall.
Some fast guys back toward the back. Patrick Carpentier, 12th. Scott Dixon, 13th. Paul Tracy, 14th. About 12 1/4 to go. Welcome back to first round qualifying for the Kart Grand Prix of Mexico City. The Rodriguez Brothers Circuit in a massive park that houses all sorts of sports facilities, known as the Sports City of Magdalena Mijuca. This is Michel Jourdain Jr. using all of the road and then some, trying to hoist himself up from 15th. Just ahead of him on the time charts, Paul Tracy in 14th, Calvin Fish.
Well, Paul's got a fresh set of Bridgestones on. He just streamed out of his pit box right now, but he just reported to the team the car's really sliding around, particularly through the S's. There's no side by in the car whatsoever. He related it to tyre pressure. It just feels like the tyre prices are way too high. I have no confidence to hold my foot down through the S's, and that really eats up a big chunk of time, as TK was talking about earlier.
Tracy on the road, warming up just ahead, now behind Michel Jourdain Jr.
And that was, sport. He knew he couldn't get up to speed to get out of Michel's way, so he practically stopped on the racetrack offline.
Dario Franchitti moves to pole at 126.147. And Bruno Junqueira is on track and getting that message right now, no doubt.
The exact place where Dario was trying to make the car better is the place we've been talking about in those S's. Was able to make the car a little bit crisper, a little more solid on the front end, so that when he was changing directions, the car was not falling over.
There's Franchitti.
And that, when I was commenting on Bruno, I said when he was in the S's, when you saw him change direction, it looked like the car really just took a set. And you could see the car grab a hold of the racetrack, and you could actually see the car roll. What Paul's talking about with the higher tire pressures, or what they think is the higher tire pressures, every time he turns it, the car takes a little bit of a skip. It doesn't really take a firm set and grab a hold of the racetrack.
Fittipaldi, Christian to the provisional pole at 126.0. Grabbing a 10th off of Dario Franchitti. And earlier I mentioned we had 3 drivers in the 126 zone. Those 3 drivers have shuffled provisional pole between them. No one else has gotten to that point on the clock. Cristiano D'Amato warming up at 129.339, about 2 seconds off of his best time in this session. Less than 10 minutes to go now. Keep in mind, this is new pavement. TK, is this going to be one of those last man standing kind of deals? At least among those top 3?
It could very well be. When D'Amato's back in 6th, so he's always been able, or almost always been able, to find something when he needs it. Little lockup, just a teeny bit of lockup there coming around Tony Kanaan. Looks like he pulled off to get out of his countryman's way. Now Cristiano's heading into the S's. That was 6. This is turn 7, 8. 9. And they just keep going. 10. They get progressively faster. 11. Big bumps here in the middle of 12. Right here. Bang, bang. And then 13. The flat out left-hander. Drift all the way out over the white line. There's a little extra road because of an access road down into the stadium. Turn 14. And he's off it. He avoided that lap when he came up on Paul. Dash was obviously telling him that it wasn't good enough, so he'll start another one.
D'Amato continues on his way. We'll take a break and return down to the final 8 minutes of first round qualifying, Grand Prix of Mexico City. Welcome back to Mexico City. Cristiano D'Amato trying to scramble his way up the provisional standings, headed by Christian Fittipaldi at 1 minute 26.027 seconds. Dario Franchitti is 2nd, Bruno Junqueira 3rd, D'Amato 6th. Got some lock up there. You can tell the little Brazilian is trying hard.
You can see when he entered turn 4 there, the brake, he didn't brake straight parallel with the edge of the track. He angled slightly in, and that, I think after he hit the brakes, he knew he was probably in a little bit of trouble. Turned in a little bit early to buy himself some time, got a little bit of a lockup, released the brakes, rolled it into the corner. If you do it perfectly, that you don't leave anything on the table. If you get a little bit too hot, it'll hurt you when you switch back to go to the next right-hander after that. That's always the trade-off. Entry versus exit, or in a combination of corners, the first one versus the second.
Through the baseball stadium.
Jourdain off again on the outside. I noticed Jourdain, I don't think he realizes there's that dirty part in the last 8 inches of the road there. He keeps going out there. It looks fine to him, but whenever he puts the outside rear out there, it's like someone puts one of those floor jacks under the back of it, and the back just rotates right around. It won't take the set when he gives it that jerk of the wheel, turning the car into the corner.
So Michel Jourdain Jr. brings out the red flag. He'll lose his quickest lap of all, set by Christian Fittipaldi, followed by that man, Dario Franchitti. Here's Calvin Fish.
Well, Dario's come in. He's called it a day early, and he's talking to Alan McDonald and Kyle Moyer. Dario, how is the car? You're 10th off the pole right now.
Yeah, the car's not bad. That lap was it. The next lap I just tried for some more and there wasn't there, and I ended up going slower, so I messed up the exit onto my next lap as well, so there's no point even starting it. So we came in, we'll keep the tyres for tomorrow.
Fun racetrack?
Marvellous. Fantastic. Really, that whole section around the back is so challenging. The whole place is awesome. Really, really good fun.
With the setup, is it much of a compromise? You come into that stadium section on the concrete, some big bumps through there on turn in and exit there, and then you got the high-speed stuff.
Well, Alan told me he was going to ignore everything I said about the concrete this weekend and we just concentrate on the other part. But even then, there's compromise between getting rid of the understeer in that fast section and not making the car too nervous on the brakes. So it's really, marvellous.
I'm going to head to the race on Sunday, and with the speed through those S's and aero downforce on the front end, is that going to be a factor trying to follow cars closely through there?
I would say, yeah, I think it'll be difficult. It's going to make it interesting.
All right, mate, have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Drivers are guaranteed 30 minutes of green flag time, so as the clock ticks down, they are due about another 4 minutes. As you watch Christian Fittipaldi, who sits on provisional pole. His best qualifying performance of the year was second at Mid-Ohio. He could grab provisional.
Welcome back to Mexico City. Kart qualifying still going on today. Just a few minutes left, but right now the current pole sitter is Christian Fittipaldi. Christian, great lap out there, and this is big. Potential rain tomorrow could keep you the pole for Sunday.
Well, we'll have to wait. There's still 4 more minutes to go in the session, but it was a pretty good lap. The guys gave me a better car for the second set of tires, but I think the biggest difference we had was that I managed to put the lap together like really perfect. And when the car was pushing a little bit, I was on the right place at the track, and I didn't suffer as much as on the first set.
From a per driver's perspective, I'm sure you'll work on the setup over the next day or so, but how close to you really get? You said that was a really good lap. Is there more to come from a driver right now with more laps on the racetrack?
No, it's not that I was new to this track. I had raced here in '92, so I knew the track. It's a different car, but it was pretty much there. Like, if someone beats me, believe me, it's fair and square. They just managed to go quicker than I did because I didn't have any more out of the car. That's why I came in.
All right, Christian, great run.
Thanks very much, Calvin. Recall that in the first race of the year in Monterrey, Mexico, Christian Fittipaldi was the fast man in provisional qualifying, but brought out the red flag. He was the first driver to fall afoul of that new rule in qualifying and lost his fast lap. He has been very quick south of the border. Cristiano Namada appears to be done for the day with just 11 laps in the books, and he's currently 6th. So perhaps he feels that's all he's going to get out of the car as well. Notice the shadows, sunshine on this part of the backstretch, but we're still hearing reports of scattered raindrops on some others.
Now this will be interesting to watch with Bruno, who's been one of the quickest cars the entire weekend, and I think he was probably interrupted on his second run. But you see Paul Tracy, who's gone out behind Bruno to probably gauge exactly how he's running and where he's losing time. Sometimes this is even more valuable than your data. It can help point you in the right direction.
We also heard Christian Fittipaldi mention he drove a Formula One car here in '92. That race was won by Nigel Mansell in the Williams, and it marked the first podium appearance for the future 5-time world champion Michael Schumacher. A lot of water under the bridge since then. Here's a look at Luis Diaz subbing for the injured Adrian Fernandez. Fernandez has been very busy in the pit lane, sticking his head in the cockpit, talking with this young Mexican protege. 2-time winner in the Toyota Atlantic Championship, the top rung of the kart development ladder. And right now, Diaz finds himself 17th on the provisional order, 1 spot ahead of fellow rookie Andre Lauderer.
I talked about how that interruption probably hurt Bruno a lot. It hurts Luis even more in a different way. Talking about even Tony Kanaan, who's very familiar with these cars, said, you know, I'm just going to benefit by more laps in a row. Well, think about Luis Diaz. Never been to this circuit before, never driven a champ car other than a brief test out at Phoenix. And so those interruptions, you know, from a guy like Bruno, he can go back out there and have a chance at clicking back in to his rhythm and maybe knocking those guys off the pole. But for Luis, chances are he would benefit from more laps in a row. So this probably hurts him even more than the rest of the guys.
Once again, our pictures are coming to us from host broadcaster TV Azteca. Just ahead of Diaz on the road is Oriol Servia, the Spaniard, having his problems in the Vistion car. Currently 19th, dead last on the provisional grid. A little anxious. Does Christian appear? Sorry for the Yoda speak.
Get used to it, just like Busch pole qualifying.
Oh yeah, Christian has a steep learning curve ahead of him. There's Servia.
I got confused. It's Bud pole qualifying. Busch is on the pole.
What did I do with that car? I don't want to give it away. It'll be on Speed Channel later this evening. Oops. Servia at 129.659, his best lap as the checkered flag flies. Great problems for the Spaniard. We'll have to look at that overnight.
They're looking for what Bruno Junqueira does on his last lap. Bruno ran a 26.4. So he's going to have a shot at it coming here to the pole. That was less than a tenth, just 100th off his previous best.
There's Junqueira, with Paul Tracy behind him on the road.
And Junqueira takes pole.
Oh, with a 25.9. Well, Christian said it himself. If somebody's going to beat me, he's going to earn it. And Junqueira did.
Doesn't mean it's not going to bum him out, though, huh?
I think his body language with the helmet right there told that story. 125.941, 116.703 miles per hour in average speed. Bruno Junqueira grabs provisional pole and the championship bonus point that goes with it. His third, well, it could be after tomorrow's second round of qualifying, his third pole of the year. He wound up starting from P1 on the Motegi Oval in Japan, at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and the street circuit at Denver. Couldn't find 3 more varied tracks than that. We'll be back with more in a moment. Speed Channel's coverage of the Kart FedEx Championship Series is brought to you by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. Back at Mexico City, provisional qualifying for this weekend's Kart Grand Prix of Mexico City is now complete. Tommy Kendall has joined Calvin Fish in the pit lane. Let's hear from the key players.
Well, what a lap by Bruno Junqueira. 4th, well, maybe pole, provisional pole anyway, Bruno. That was a great lap. The tires weren't brand new and you put one out there.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I don't know if it was wet or because I get close of Tony on the last lap, he slowed down. I lost the downforce on turn 1. I lost 4 tenths. And I said I'm 4 tenths slower than my best lap. And I said, I don't think I can improve, but I pushed very, very hard through the lap. Everything went right. And I'm really pleased to get this lap on the last lap with the dump track.
The car seemed to roll off the truck quick this morning. You were a fast man this morning by over a second and seemed to continue into the session this afternoon. But this is a magnificent racetrack. Talk about the challenge of this track in Mexico City.
This is a pretty nice track. I just love road tracks. These are about, I think you can go fast, you can go on the limit. I just love it.
This has to feel good. You've been pipped at the post many times. I mean, Tony did it to you at the last race at Fontana. This has to feel good to pip Christian.
Yeah, very good. That was the last time to get the pole.
All right, Bruno, congratulations. He'll be locked into the front row for Sunday's race, Bob.
Good point, Calvin. That provisional pole not only brings him a championship point, but guarantees him a front row start for Sunday's race. Now let's catch up with TK somewhere in the pit lane.
I feel like the boy that's been let out of the bubble. They finally let me out of the booth, get down here on the pit lane with my boys. Jimmy Vassar, really good run for you.
Yeah, you know, we haven't been up in the top 5 on road circuits for quite a while, and car felt pretty good. So, you know, got my fingers crossed for tomorrow. We can make it a little bit better. And I don't know what happened with my teammate. Michel's really quick around here. He must have had some problems, and you expect to have him up in the top 5 tomorrow as well.
Now, as good as your run was, as soon as I walked up, you were not real happy. What happened on your quick lap?
Well, you know, maybe Carpante didn't see me, but twice I had half a second up on my lap coming out through the S's, and he's lollygagging around coming back to the pits. I could understand if he was trying to get some distance to do a lap, but then he would come right in the pits, and you know, just wasn't really good for me. So, yeah, I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, but just some of the perils of qualifying.
Now, talk about the track. It's been getting rave reviews. How do you feel about it? And if so, what's the key for you going into tomorrow? Where are you going to try to make the car better?
Change the direction through the S's. I've got a little too much understeer, and I can't put the front exactly where I want. It seems like I'm just a half a step behind in the rhythm of all the S's coming back. I mean, what a fantastic circuit. I mean, this is it's a world-renowned circuit that they've done a great reconditioning to, and you know, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. They've done a fantastic job, and the Mexican people should be very proud of this track. It's very fun to drive, and it's a great track.
Thanks, Jimmy. Have a good one tomorrow. Down a little further down with another big star, one of the big names with Calvin Fish.
Well, I'm here with Paul Tracy, Tommy, and Paul, big struggle through the first half of that session, but recovered a little bit, currently 7th. How is the car now?
The car's not very good. I mean, I went out behind Bruno in that last session, and I basically just tried to hang on for dear life to keep sight of his back wing, and I was able to do 2 laps behind him and just try to go as quick as I could to keep him in sight. And he's very, very fast through the S's, all the switchbacks in the infield, and we're not very fast through there, but we got a better lap in, and we know where we need to improve it for tomorrow.
It's a great racetrack, and we talk about having a bad handling car on an oval. Would it pretty much be the same here if you don't have a car that's handling through those fast S's? It's going to be a long afternoon on Sunday.
It's really important to get through all of those because every one of them is different. They've all got different radiuses. They've all got different late apex, early apex. Some are flat, some are banked, some are off camber. So it's very difficult to set up for, and I think we have an idea of what we need to do. We just need to find more mechanical grip because we have no downforce here at the altitude. So we've got to get it mechanically.
All right, PT, go and do some work tonight.
Thanks.
Now, Patrick Carpentier, you're right in the middle of that battle for second. Bruno getting a point doesn't help you, but you had a really good run yourself. You got him in sight at least.
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm not very good. Sorry, take that back. But I'm very happy. The guys did a fantastic job. This morning we were really slow, and they just made the car so much better in a few rounds. We couldn't run this morning, but man, Bruno got the pole. So now he's got to be like 2 or 3 positions behind me for me to get ahead of him. So it's going to be tough, but we never know.
Now, what's the secret for this track? What are you working on to try to make the car quicker?
Just need to make the car more stable because the S's in the back, the car takes a long time to change direction. We just need to make the car change direction fast, so it goes through that section pretty fast there. So,
I mean, it's critical. If you just had 2 corners in a row, but they're just one after another, you're in there forever. If you got a problem, it's a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, if you got a problem in those S's, those are multiple S's, so you got a lot of problems. So we fixed that, and it was a lot better. So I'm pretty happy. Tomorrow we need to make some gain. We had a problem at the back. We're not fast enough to be as fast as Bruno, but we got to take him away from that pole tomorrow.
Have a good one. Calvin, what do you got?
Well, I got the pole myself. Actually, he's had 2 poles out of the last 3. What happened today, Tony? 5th?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. When you start in the top 3, the last 3 races, you get greedy. But we had a lot of problems, Calvin. Had a gearbox problem this morning. We tried to fix. We couldn't fix. Actually, they thought they fixed. We went out in the 15 minutes. They couldn't fix, so I had to jump in my backup car. And as you guys know, we have different kind of suspensions, and we had set up one car different than the other, and I had to qualify the car that I didn't like. So 5th, it's not a bad effort, but like I said, I'm getting too greedy maybe.
It's a great racetrack for a single lap in qualifying, but talk about the race. When everyone gets dialed in and if we have a close field, what is the race going to be like with this long straightaway and the high speeds?
It's going to be easy to pass here, but in the back session there, I would say it's going to be tough. And 73 laps here, I'm hoping that my neck can hold that. You know, it's my last time in a road course for at least 2 years, so let's see what we can do. But I think the race is going to be fun for you guys to watch for sure.
All right, well, Tony will do some work tonight with the team, and hopefully he'll be on the front row for Sunday.
All right, thanks very much, guys. You heard it from the experts. The S's are where the secret to speed in Mexico City.